In the 10th, the 11th, and the 12th steps, we now enter into a whole different phase and a whole different concept of recovery. In these steps, we now enter into the process of beginning to look at what we call in the program the rewards. The rewards are very special because so many of us, as we get into recovery, are always looking for what's going to be for us. Why am I doing all this? Why should I put myself through all this turmoil, all this work? Why should I work on settling things inside of myself? Why should I go through all this? What's the reason? In the program, they try to teach us that there are very special and very beautiful and very definite rewards. The 10th, the 11th, and the 12th steps are exactly that. They are called by nickname the Serenity Steps, the Gentle Steps, the Gratitude Steps, the Maintenance Steps, the daily, everyday steps that teach us how to live, how to basically go through the fundamental concepts of life. These steps are also very beautiful because they are geared primarily towards teaching us to look deeper, to go inside. Notice how this 12-step program is set up. In the first 9 steps, we work on changes, we work on attitude. We also work on very concrete situations in our life. We work on all the different things that have happened to us in our life. We learn to make peace, we learn to settle things. As a result of the first 9 steps, we actually begin to open up inside of ourselves a whole sense of a new person within. In the 10th, 11th, and 12th step, we are now ready because we have cleared the decks. We have cleared the garbage out. We have cleared the insanity. We are now able to begin to look at the serenity, the peacefulness, and the beauty of what life really is. That's why these steps are so exciting and so beautiful, and that's why we call them the steps of reward. Let's begin with the 10th step. In the 10th step, we experience a very beautiful concept. We experience what we call our daily inventory. Visualize that terminology. In the 10th step, they tell us to make a daily inventory of our life. What does that mean? It means that my life has now gotten to a point, as a result of working the steps, that I look at myself in a very special way and in a very beautiful way. So therefore, every day I spend time on me. You see, one of the things that we fail to realize, and look at your own life, when you look at the visualization of your own day, understand that so many of us really have no time for ourselves. We have time for our jobs, we have time to eat, we have time for everything. We run around like crazy. Some of us have anxiety attacks. But in reality, we never make those very special moments, those very special times, just for us. In the 10th step, they tell us one of the most basic gifts of life is to, every day that you're alive, make time for you. Make time to smell the roses. Make time to look at life. Make time to look at the little things of life. There's a very simple philosophy in the 10th step, which is so beautiful. It means that for the first time in my life, I begin to experience who I am. I put it in the following way. It's almost like when I am all by myself, when I am all alone, I am with someone very special. I am with me. It's such a beautiful concept because as I learned in the 8th and 9th step to make peace, I now learn in the 10th step to walk out and begin to discover and look at the discovery of life. There are so many things in life that we have missed because we've been kind of trapped and pushed into situations in our life that are unhealthy for us. And now we have to begin to look out at the things around us and begin to realize that God, our higher power, teaches us through every experience, through every person, through every concept of life. In the 10th step, we experience what we call the discovery, the openness. And it's almost like for the first time I can begin to see things around me. I call it dropping the scales from your eyes, beginning to see the beautiful things that are right around you, beginning to appreciate the little things of life. The more you clear the insanity out of your life and the dysfunctionality, the more you open yourself to begin to discover the things that are right under your nose all the time. You begin to smell the roses. You begin to see the sun come up in the morning. You begin to experience the gentleness of each day. You begin to view life and look at people and see them as teachers, as people to learn from. You begin to see situations in life through the eyes again of your positive glasses. You begin to view things from the point of growth, because deep down inside you have a peacefulness and you have a serenity. You see, it means and it teaches us to make time for ourselves, to make time to do the little things of life, to make time to play, to make time to celebrate, to make time to be a person. Time is such a beautiful thing, and it squeaks and moves away from us. And so many of us don't take those little moments of life and appreciate them and enjoy them. And I'm not talking about a gigantic amount of time, because I know we have busy lives. I'm talking about that 15, that 20 minutes a day, that half an hour that's just mine. That very special time when all I do is take care of me. When I actually am able to spend time with myself and meet myself. Have you ever asked yourself the question, in this process of recovery, we never have to be lonely again. When you are all alone and by yourself, you are with the most special and the most beautiful human being in the world, your best friend, you. Did you ever realize in your wildest dreams and your wildest imagination that you be able to say that you enjoy your own company, that you enjoy being around people and being with yourself? Did you ever realize in your wildest dreams, your wildest imagination, that you would actually begin to experience peacefulness and gentleness inside of you? Did you ever think in your wildest dreams that you would be able to actually walk through the woods, walk through the park, be able to smell the roses and not trample them, to be able to look at a simple thing like a flower and see beauty, to begin to look at every concept of life and see something positive in it, because your viewpoint and your concept of life has now changed. Remember what I said way back in the beginning. We as individuals and as persons are powerhouses of love. What we have to learn is to take that energy and that force that's inside of us and just simply to let it glow. And believe me when I tell you this, when you're around people, and so many times we go through our guilt and we go through our changes, realize that as long as we love, and as long as we try, and as long as we're honest, and as long as we do our best, that's all that's asked of any human being in this world. And if we do that, we've done all that we can do. If we do that, then we are open to the process, and we're open to recovery. We're open to the spirit. And if we do that, we will begin to experience the newness inside of ourselves. See, again, realize a couple of basic things about the 10th step, which is so special and so beautiful. In the 10th step, we actually begin to look at our own aloneness again, our specialness again. We begin to realize that on this journey of life, there was one very important person, and that person is me. And from me comes all types of energy. If I work on me and I am positive, and I do that every day, I take time for me, and I keep myself centered, I keep my core inside, then I am able to deal with all the different situations that come up in life. I am able to realize that sure, I'm going to be attacked, and sure, people won't like me, and sure, I'm going to have conflict. But yet, it's part of what life is. It's part of the human experience. And if I am open to that and I experience that, then I am able to begin to realize that through all this, I'm still going to do things through the eyes of love. I'm going to realize that this energy is inside of me. And if I am positive and I care about myself and I keep growing, then whatever's around me will eventually be touched, and it will eventually be reached out, and eventually it will be settled. Remember the words I'm using, though, eventually. So many of us want everything to be okay immediately. So many of us want everything to work out right away. Nothing works out right away. Everything happens in time. Everything happens slowly. Any growth process, as we mentioned in these tapes over and over again, any growth process involves pain. It involves struggle. Any growth process that we do in life involves each of us experiencing that process and growing with it. And all growth, every growth process in life is slow, gentle, tedious, struggled, work through it. It's worth it. The 10th step teaches us that we have to earn who we are. We have to earn the concept of ourself. For example, if you don't take time every day to basically work on you, then basically what you're doing is you are denying yourself. That's why it's so important in recovery to begin to experience what I call the time process. See, time is so special. Minutes go by, hours go by, days go by, life goes by. And yet, inventory and look at ourselves and ask ourselves the question, what do we do with our time? Where does our energy go? Where are the simple little things of life? How much time do I spend in my development, in learning about me? How much time do I spend in my own gentleness? How much time do I spend just simply mellowing, relaxing, enjoying, celebrating, discovering? You know, one thing I have learned in recovery, which is so beautiful today, that life is big. There's a lot out there. There are many different ways, different concepts, different directions, and it's important to learn from them and be open to them all and open to all the experiences. We go through many changes in the course of life. We change relationships, we change jobs, we change situations. You know, that's important. It's part of the growth of life and the process of life. Life is not static. Life is energy. Life is always on the move. Life is always changing. And what's so beautiful about the aspect of life is to be able to go with the flow, to be able to be open to allow it to take place and not to get in its way. So many times what we do is we get in the way of life because we try to control it and manipulate it. We try to grab it. We try to take care of it. We try to make sure it happens the way we want it to happen. See, I want everybody to like me. I want these people to do this. I want this person to do that. When in reality, it doesn't work that way. Life is a flow. It's an energy. It moves on and on. Let me use a concept to show you what I'm talking about. If you've ever been in a hospital, you'll notice that if they hook you up to a heart monitor, you will notice that in the heart monitor, if you are living and if your heart is beating, then the monitor goes up and down, up and down, up and down. If the monitor has a straight line across it, it means you're dead. It's real simple. So what is life? Life is a series of ups and downs, ups and downs. What's so beautiful about recovery is if I work on myself and I build what I call a steady concept of my spiritual self, then every time I experience an up, I can go and celebrate because I celebrate the ups in my life, the beauties in my life. But every time I experience a down, I take my ups and I take my beauty with me and I go down into it. And I realize over and over again that I have to have those downs. I have to have those situations in life because life is conflict. Any growth process is conflict. And so again, I have to be open to that. That also teaches me to look at all aspects and discover all aspects and be honest about it and be open about it. See, all I can do in life is be honest. And honesty is hard. We talked about that in the second step. Honesty is not easy. And yet, the more we work on ourselves, the more honest we become, the more we discover things about ourselves, the more we discover new parts of us. Every one of our struggles, every one of the conflicts in our life helps us to learn something more about ourselves, helps us to mature, to become more responsible, to grow a little bit. And we have to learn to use it in that perspective. That's why the rewards of recovery means that for the first time in my life, I can view life through what I call clarity. I can view the changes in my life through clarity. I can view the visions in my life through clarity. I can view the things around me in a much clearer sense because all of a sudden in my life I'm beginning to be open, and I'm beginning to discover things, and I'm beginning to realize that life is a constant discovery and a constant growth. This is really important in the process of recovery, because as the more I begin to work on myself, the more I now begin to experience the spiritual concept inside of me. So the 10th step is very simple. It tells us, make time for you. Make time to learn. Make time to grow. Do not be stagnant. Do not stand still. Remember the most basic process of life. You are either growing or dying. It's important. You have to always be in growth. You are always in change. You are always developing. You know, it's amazing. Look at our bodies. Our bodies grow old. They change. They're supposed to. Every aspect of us changes. They're supposed to. That teaches us what life is all about. So enjoy every part of it, every aspect, every minute of it, and look at life through the eyes of growing and learning. Look at every concept of it. And if you do that, then life becomes an adventure. It becomes a discovery for you. Along with the 10th step, we also now move into probably one of the most spiritual and most beautiful steps of the program, and that is the 11th step. Now notice something about this step. It's number 11. But notice something about how this program is set up. The first 11 steps in the program are geared primarily towards development of the personal self, development of you. They are towards you developing your self-caring. It's only in the 12th step, as we'll talk about later, it's only in the 12th step that we share, that we reach out, that we move things to other people. In the first 11 steps, we learn the spiritual base of life. We learn in these very beautiful steps to go inside and to heal, to go inside and to settle, to go inside and to grow. Listen to the 11th step. In the 11th step, we say that we sought through prayer and meditation to keep our conscious contact with our God as we understood Him, praying only for the knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry it out. In the 11th step, and I have a nickname for this step, I call it the concrete step. It is the step that brings all the other steps together. It makes them make sense. In the 11th step, we learn to pray and we learn to meditate. You know, it's unfortunate, but so many of us, as a result of ways in which we were raised as little children, especially ways in which we were raised in religion, so many of us have learned kind of foreign concepts of prayer and meditation. And yet those two words are extremely special in the personal growth process of a human being. And that's why, as I discuss them in this lecture, it's extremely important, please do not mix them up with religion. We're talking about a whole different concept in life. Prayer is something very special. Prayer simply means communication. So many of us do not know how to communicate externally and how to communicate internally. Look at some of our concepts of prayer. As children growing up, we learned a very simple and basic form of prayer. We learned something called baby prayer. Now, baby prayer goes like this. I want what I want when I want it. Notice little children, what they do. They always pray for what they want. In reality, they also pray for the people that are nice to them. Babies are basically individuals that take care of the baby. They're very selfish types of prayers. So what happens in baby prayer is we're always praying for our wants. In the recovery program, we learn something about prayer. We learn to seek, we learn to reach out, we learn to touch our higher power, and we learn to ask. But then we don't look for our wants. We're open to our needs. People always say to me, I prayed and I prayed and prayed and God doesn't answer my prayers. And my response is very simple. Yes, He did. He said no. See, so many of us don't want to hear the things we have to hear. I warn people on the program all the time, be very careful, because if you pray, your prayers will be answered. They may not be answered the way you want them to be answered, but they will be answered. The problem is, are we open? Do we listen to the answers? That's why it's kind of interesting as we begin to grow up and become adults, we develop a new type of prayer. I have a nickname for this prayer. I call it the addict's prayer. It's called, let's make a deal. One of the things we do all the time is we're always getting involved in this crazy concept of prayer, telling God, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Isn't it amazing in our society how whenever we get in trouble, whenever things happen to us, all of a sudden we pray. Before that, we don't pray. We always look for things to get us out of trouble. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. If you get me out of this jam, I'll make the following 45 promises to you. That's amazing what we do. Once we get out of the jam, then we change our prayer to what I call plea bargaining prayer. Well, now, God, you don't really expect me to do all those things now, do you? I'll tell you what, I'll just do a couple of them. We're always gaming. We're always playing games because everything we do when we talk about prayer is this very false concept of prayer. The prayer we talk about in the program is not the addict's prayer or the baby prayer. The prayer we talk about in the program is called prayer of the gut, prayer of the heart, prayer that comes from deep inside of me, that comes from my center, that comes from my spiritual core. This type of prayer comes from my pain, comes from my hurt. You see, what I have to do is I have to learn not to keep stuff inside of me, but I have to learn to share and communicate my pain and my hurt. I have to learn to share it with others. I also have to learn how to develop inside of myself that sense of communicating with my higher power, my higher self, centering myself, finding peace inside of me. I have to be able to communicate. The greatest prayer in the world is to communicate your feelings, to communicate what's happening to you. I was talking to a gentleman one time and he said to me, you know, I really have an issue with God. And I said, yeah, tell me about it. He said, well, you know, I keep wondering and getting mad at God all the time. I said, great. He said, I even curse him out. I said, great. I said, what are you doing? He said, remember something about God. God is basically a connection to you. If you're angry, if you're frustrated, then express what's going on inside of you. Real prayer is prayer of the gut, prayer that comes from your gut. What's so important sometimes is that our crying is our prayer. Many of us are scared to cry. We're scared to hurt. We're scared to go through pain. It's okay. See, what we're doing is we're just simply being honest. We're feeling. And sometimes it's so beautiful to communicate to our higher power just how we feel. And on some days we're just so angry and so frustrated. And that's okay too. I always love telling the story of a gentleman I met years and years ago. He's a street wino. Kind of an interesting person. I used to work at the halfway house years ago. He lived with us. And he had this old crucifix. And I used to really get kind of a big kick out of him because he used to always tell me about how he used to pray to God and he carried this little crucifix around with him. No matter where he went, it was based on what kind of mood he was in. You could tell because if he was kind of in a good mood, the crucifix was laying on his pillow face up. If he was in a bad mood, the crucifix was face down. If he was having a real hard day, the crucifix was under his pillow. And he always said that, today God left me. So he went under the pillow. He always had this concept and this honesty with his higher power and with his God. I got a kick out of that because he was real. He was honest. It was coming from his gut and from his heart. There are some times when sometimes we just want to scream and we just want to yell and we just want to curse and we just want to let things out of us. Go ahead. See, again, understand that our connection to our higher power means that we have to feel. An expression of gut and feelings is so much more important than some of the intellectual bull that we get ourselves involved in all the time. People always say to me, what form of prayer should I use? Whatever you're feeling, whatever's going on inside of you. See, communicate it to your higher power. Let your higher power know. Some days we have prayer of despair. That's okay. We have those days. We have some days when we're hurting so bad that all we can do is just beg and hope. There are days when things are beautiful and special so we can celebrate. What's important is to take it all, every aspect of it, every part of life, because what is life? Life's a combination of it all. Every hurt and pain, every struggle, all the things that go on inside of us, they're all prayers. They're all part of who we are. They're all part of our feelings. What's so important is to express them, to let them out, to let them be, to open the little kid up inside of us. It's a very beautiful concept of life. And again, what happens is we get so scared about that. We are scared to express it. In the 11th step, we also learn the next beautiful concept. We learn meditation. Meditation is a very beautiful and a very special word. See, to meditate means to be quiet, to be at peace, to go inside. So many of us have never learned how to simply experience the beautiful gift of listening. One thing I've learned in recovery, which is so beautiful for me today, is that meditation for me is close off, be quiet, and listen. Do you realize that you can hear all kinds of messages from your higher self and from your higher power? All you have to do is open your ears and listen. Remember the old timers in AA? They always say, take the cotton out of your ears and stick it in your mouth. It means be quiet for a while. The more quiet you become, the more serene you become, the more you hear, the more you learn, the more you grow. That's why it's so beautiful and so special and so exciting. See, we can learn deep down inside of ourselves to actually experience peacefulness and gentleness and quiet. And the more peaceful our life becomes, the more quiet it becomes, the more we go inside, the more we're able to spend time in quiet. Try something. So many of us are always so busy doing everything. Did you ever just take time and do nothing? Most of us don't know how to do nothing. We don't know how to experience all these neat things in our life. So as a result, what happens is we don't know how to experience the quiet inside of us, the gentleness inside of us. We also have to learn the beautiful part of recovery. We have to learn to be able to just be, just to let things happen. See, there are messages all around us. We have to be open to listen to them. In every situation that occurs in our life, in every person that we meet, there are no coincidences. Everything happens for a reason. What we learn in recovery is that we meet people, we run into people, we connect to people. There's a reason why it's happening. Can we open ourselves up to it? Do we listen, or are we too busy? See, the quieter you are, then all of a sudden you are able to be open and to listen. What is the 11th step? The program teaches us to have an open mind, to look at life through openness, to realize that basically there are no absolutes. There are always newness and new things to learn. What I have learned in recovery is that there are so many different people, so many different ways, so many different nationalities, so many different concepts, so many different points of view, and it's so neat to be in the mix and just experience it and be open to it all. I have learned in recovery not to criticize other people's points of view, but to listen to them, because we can learn from every individual and from every person. I look at the human race, and to me, I'm looking at what I call the most gigantic, the most huge, and most beautiful public library in existence: human beings. Every one of us is writing our own book. Each one of us has our own experiences. When we learn to listen to each other, and we learn to be connected to each other, then all of a sudden, we read each other's book. There is a new chapter being developed every day, and that's okay. Give yourself permission to begin to experience that type of openness. So many of us have closed minds. We shut everything off. We don't want to hear things. The things you don't want to hear are usually the things you need to hear. Be open to it. So meditation simply means to be quiet, to be open, to learn, and to grow. As you learn this concept, you learn the most beautiful part of the 11th step, and that is to listen to your higher power. Even in situations that you're in that are negative, if you listen to it and you're honest with it, even if you get out of it and you leave it and you settle it and you let go of it, it's okay. Because basically what you've done is you've listened. You see what's happening. So many of us stay in our misery for long, long periods of time. We drive ourselves crazy. Give yourself permission to listen to what's going on around you. It's real. If things are healthy, you'll be able to tell it. If they're not, you'll be able to tell it. If you work on yourself, then basically the things around you will work on themselves. And that's why it's so important to look at the 11th step through the eyes of communication and through the eyes of listening. In that process, what happens is we now begin to open ourselves up to begin to grow. The program teaches us over and over again the importance of being open, the importance of learning, the importance of discovering, the importance of growing. As you experience that, you experience the gratitude, you experience the beauty. So the 11th step is geared primarily towards teaching us to be peaceful, teaching us to listen, teaching us to be open. And as you view life and look at life, look at it through the eyes of openness. Look at it through the eyes of growth. Look at it through the eyes of discovery. As we continue to work on the rewards of recovery, we now begin to look at the final step of recovery, the 12th step. In this step, a very special step, there's something unique about it. As we have learned in steps 10 and 11, we have learned to look at life through the eyes of openness. In the 10th and the 11th step, we have learned to become more open people. We have learned to realize that there are many ways and many directions. In the 12th step is the only step in the program that we do not have to work. That may sound very strange. What's so beautiful about this step is that it works itself. This is probably such a beautiful step that it teaches us and touches us in very many different ways. The 12th step reads, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, I am now ready to carry the message to another sick person and to practice these principles in all of my affairs. Listen to the beauty and the wisdom of the 12th step. Having had a spiritual awakening. The most beautiful, the most special, the most wonderful gift any one of us as a human being can experience in life is to experience an awakening. To awaken to the gift of who we are, to awaken to our personhood, to awaken to ourself. You see, when we look at the concept of spirit, inside of each and every one of us, there is that unique and that special part of us called our spirit. That which makes us who we are. That which makes us become the individual person that we are. It's what makes me different from each of you. It's what makes each of us in this world a unique individual, a special person. We call this step the step of the Spirit because what we have done is we have awakened the uniqueness of our own personhood. In the first 11 steps of the program, we have actually spent the time and worked on ourselves and actually given ourselves permission to wake up, given ourselves permission to begin to experience a new concept of us, to get to meet ourselves and to awaken the spirit, the uniqueness of our own personhood. What's so beautiful about it is that the spiritual awakening is not something that you can manipulate or something you can organize. It just happens. As you work on yourself, all of a sudden there's a clearance. As you work on yourself, all of a sudden there's an awakening. And what's so beautiful about the spiritual awakening is that you finally begin to feel that serenity and feel that peacefulness. So having had a spiritual awakening, having worked on self, developed self, looked at self, made changes with self, and all of a sudden began to realize as a result of the first 11 steps that I could discipline myself, that I love me, that I basically know who I am now. I am building this relationship. I have a concept of me. I have awakened to who I am. So having had a spiritual awakening, I now carry the message to another sick person. This part of the step is so important. In the program, we talk about giving service. We talk about sharing. What do we share? How do we share? And it's real simple. In this program, because of our spiritual awakening, we now live the program. We live our life. You know what's so beautiful about this recovery program? It actually brings this out to us, and so many of us miss it. The program tells us to go back into the mainstream of life and simply to live. To go out into the mainstream of life and just be. To go out into the mainstream of life and just celebrate your personhood. And what's so beautiful about the 12th step is you carry a message by the way you live. You carry a message by the things that you do. You carry a message by the way you carry yourself. The message is you. It's real simple and it's real beautiful. What we have to learn is just to be ourselves, just to live. If we live in honesty and we live in simplicity and the beauty of the program, then automatically and naturally we will reach out, we will touch others, we'll have an effect on others. You see, you never know and you will never experience some of this, but it's just by being yourself. We have a saying for it. If you live the program, if the program is part of you, then it will literally ooze out of you. You know yourself when you're around people. When you're around people that basically are healthy, what happens? Healthiness comes out of them. Healthiness affects you. When you're around people that are negative, negativity comes out of them. So if you live and if you work your program, then very basically the energy inside of you will come forward. And it's real simple. We have an energy field around us. We have a concept of ourself. So if we are at peace and we are settled inside of ourselves, then the honesty and the beauty inside of us will touch other people. It'll affect other people. But it will happen normally and it will happen naturally. It will happen in spite of us. That's what's so beautiful about the 12th step. It tells us that we basically are not in charge. So it teaches us to carry the message. Again, let me relate. We carry the message by the way we live. We carry the message by our life. I'll give you two examples of this which are very beautiful. Years ago, again, when I was running the halfway house in South Philadelphia, there was a gentleman that was in our program. And in our program, what he would do is he graduated from the halfway house, and what he would do is he would come back for outpatient every day. He would arrive about 9 o'clock in the morning and usually go home about 4:30, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And he spent all 5 days of the week at our place. Across the street from our halfway house, there was a bar. And above the bar there were apartments. And after about a year or so of this gentleman coming to our program, one day, this gentleman from across the street came over to our place and knocked on the door. I answered the door and I said, "Can I help you?" And he said, "Yeah." He says, "You know, for 1 year now," he said, "I live in that apartment above that bar over there," he said. "And for a year, I've been watching that guy come in and out of your building. I watch him go home and I watch him come in the morning. And I've been watching him. And what I want to do now is I want to ask you, can I have what he has?" You see, that gentleman, just by living his program and by living his life, was carrying a message. The gentleman went on to tell me that basically what happened was that years ago he used to drink with that individual and spend time with that individual. And now he looked at him and he looked so good and so beautiful and so special. And he wanted to have that for himself. See, not without even knowing it, this individual was carrying a message, planting a seed. By our lives, by the things that we do, we carry messages, we plant seeds. I'll give you another example. Years ago when I was a chaplain, at the state prison, I can remember going in to visit a gentleman one day who was leaving Mays Landing County Jail and heading for Trenton State Prison. He had just been convicted of committing manslaughter. He was very angry, very upset. And so when I went in to visit him, I brought him a copy of the big book of AA. And I said to him, "Why don't you read this book? It might do you some good. Put some phone numbers in it." Well, he took the book from me and he threw it on the floor. And I won't mention publicly what he said to me. He basically told me that I could take my book and he knew what I could do with it. In reality, this gentleman was very angry, and yet the book was there. I never saw this man again in my life. About 9 years later, I received in the mail one day a letter from this gentleman, and in the letter it said, "Thank you. Thank you for the gift that you gave me 9 years ago. Thank you for the book." One day I was sitting in my jail cell, and I picked the book up, and I read it. And from that moment on, I began to attend AA meetings, and I began to get sober. All I want to say to you is, thank you. See, you never know when you carry a message. Messages come in different sizes, shapes, and forms. But they come by the way you live, by the way you live your life. That's why they tell us in the 12th step, just to be yourself, just to live. We also learn in the 12th step the very beautiful and very special message of gratitude. Gratitude is a gift, a beautiful gift. So many of us don't even realize how grateful we are. So many of us don't even realize the gift of gratitude that's deep down inside of us. And yet, in recovery, we have to open that gift up and begin to grow. Listen to these very special and beautiful phrases. I know that all of us in our wildest dreams would never think in our whole entire life that we'd ever be able to make these statements. And yet, they are healthy and they are beautiful. And they are part of the process of living, the process of growing. Did you ever think in your wildest dreams you'd be able to say one day, "I am grateful for my past. I am grateful for all the things that have happened to me. I am grateful for what was." Did you ever think in your wildest dreams or your wildest imagination you'd be able to say, "I am grateful for what's been taken away from me. I am grateful for the things that I have lost"? Did you ever think in your wildest dreams you'd be able to say, "I am grateful for where I am today. I am grateful for the moment. I am grateful for the present"? Did you ever think you'd be able to say, "I am grateful for whatever will be. I am open. Wherever the program leads me, I am willing to go. My gratitude is already there"? Gratitude is something so special and so beautiful. In the 12th step, we learn something, and it's simple, and it's real basic. We learn in the 12th step that nothing is mine. I don't own anything. Whatever I have just for today. Whatever I have just for the moment. I learn in this beautiful and special recovery program to live in the present, to live in the moment, to appreciate and to celebrate what I have right at this moment, and to realize that what I have is now here. Tomorrow, it may not be there. So therefore, I appreciate it and I celebrate it just for today. It's so beautiful to realize this because you don't look at life through the eyes of possessiveness and control. You realize in gratitude whatever is now, and you accept it, and you do the best you can with it. I realize this even in my own relationships, in all of our relationships. If we have a good, healthy relationship, we have it just for today. Eventually, tomorrow, if it's good and it's healthy, we'll want to work on it when tomorrow becomes today. We take it one day at a time. It is the gratitude, the beauty, and the simplicity of this very special and gentle recovery program. We also learn in this recovery program the most special part of being in touch with ourselves. We learn to live. We learn that life is something that we go back into the mainstream. We learn to enjoy it and celebrate it. And we learn simply just to be human beings and be persons. And if we do that, all of a sudden we open up a whole new concept of ourself. Remember the spiritual journey that we talk about, and we talk about these steps. In gratitude in the 12th step, I also learned something else. I learned to practice these principles in all of my affairs. What does it mean? It means simply and basically that I can use this 12-step program. I can use it to raise my children. I can use it to love them. I can use this 12-step program because it will teach me. If I am a healthy human being, then I will translate that to my children. This 12-step program will also teach me. I can use it on my job. I can use it in my workplace. I can use it to be able to deal with the people I have to deal with in life. I can use it in my marriage, in my relationships. I can use it with people that I love and I care for. I can use it in every situation of my life because this program teaches me and is part of me. This program shows me the beautiful gift of who I am. And that's why in gratitude we experience this beautiful and special step. Gratitude is so beautiful. It's something that all of us have to have. And if we learn it, we learn the simplicity of today. Let me repeat this just one more time because I consider it to be very important. In the concept of the 12th step, we learn gratitude. We learn to let go. We learn that nothing belongs to us. We learn to be totally open to the present. And we learn that whatever we have today may not be tomorrow. We learn to live one day at a time. We also learn in gratitude to be grateful for the things that have been taken away from us, to be grateful for what was. You see, what we're doing in gratitude is we are now beginning to look at life through the eyes of growth and through the eyes of learning, through the eyes of experience. Everything that happens to us in life has happened for a reason. There are no coincidences. Help us to learn and grow from it. We learn in the 12th step how to live, how to use this program. And the 12th step simply says to us, it simply says, be yourself, be honest, be open, and from it, experience the growth of life. That's why this program is so simple, and that's why this program is so beautiful. The 12th step also tells us on a very deep and spiritual level to experience the simplicity of recovery, the simplicity of life. If we look at life through the eyes of gratitude, if we look at it through the eyes of generosity, we also learn in this program to share. We learn in this way, as I share things, I receive things back. As I am open to the universe around me, the universe brings things back to me. As I am open to people in my life, I learn new and different things. As I open this whole aspect of myself, my life begins to change. That's why this process and this beautiful process of recovery works in such a special way. That's why we can use this as a formula for life. You know, it's amazing when we look at the 12-step program, because the 12-step program is exactly that. The 12-step program is a basic principle and formula to teach us how to live, to teach us how to be a person, to teach us how to experience the gift of who we are. As we experience these 12 steps, we have now experienced the beauty of growing and developing the personhood within us. I would now like to take a few minutes as we kind of conclude and finish these tapes to begin to realize the beauty and the strength of what this program is all about. Over these 6 tapes, we have talked about a process of recovery, a process of life. We have talked about learning. What I have shared with you is not anything new. The principles I've shared with you are about 6,000 or 7,000 years old. They've been around for a long time. These are the old ancient Hindu and Buddhist principles of life, the old concept of looking within, discovering within. In the year 1937, 2 beautiful gentlemen, the founders of AA, got together and took these principles and helped themselves to become healthy, helped themselves to grow. They taught us in these principles how important it is to begin to always work on yourself and always begin to experience things inside of yourself. From that, the 12-step programs have grown and developed, and now we are beginning to look at, in the course of our life, how codependency and the issues of codependency relate to these 12 steps, and now we apply them to that. We are learning to develop a sense of our independence, not to build dependencies that are sick, to begin to realize that we have to let go of them and get on with living, and get on with experiencing, and get on with being a person. You see, life dealt many of us negative blows, but they're really not negative. They're part of our growth process. They're part of what life really is. And there are 2 things we can do. We can sit and look at them negatively and beat ourselves to death. Or we can look at them through the eyes of growth and discovery and allow ourselves to experience the process of growth in our life. It's very simple and it's very beautiful. But we learn things from the great ancient teachers, and they're very simple. And the concept is, go inside. Look at what happens to you. Look at the situations in your life. Look at yourself. From it, discover, learn, experience. Look at your sickness. Whenever you experience your body being sick, your emotions are upset. Your emotions are not together. Look at them, connect them, put them together. Always remember that your body is always talking to you. It's always speaking to you. Your mind is always in communication with you. Your spirit is always searching and learning and growing and developing. As you experience that, you experience the beauty of life. I remember years ago when I was in the ministry, I can remember many a time being at the bedside of people as they were dying. It was a tremendously powerful experience. But one thing that always touched me and always reached me was that just at the moment, the very special moment when a person died, it was almost like you actually saw in the split second, you saw their spirit leave their body. And an old Baptist minister said this to me a long time ago. He said that when our body gets too leaky and our house can't handle us anymore, then our spirit leaves and searches for another place to go. But our spirit is always growing, it's always searching. And we as individuals and as people are searching for the spiritual journey. We're searching for the journey of life. All we are saying is be open to it. Be grateful for it. And realize that everything that occurs to us in life, no matter what it is, whether we view it as negative or positive, it is part of our growth. It is part of who we are. And we have to learn the simple principles of honesty and humility. And from it, we discover a deeper sense of ourself, and our life becomes more peaceful, it becomes more gentle, it becomes more beautiful. As we experience that, we experience the process of life and the process of recovery. These 12 steps are a process. They are an ongoing process. They go on and on throughout life. As we begin to experience them, we begin to experience the gift of who we are. As we experience them, we experience love. We experience gentleness. These 12 steps are so special and so beautiful, and they are so connected to us. And that's why, in gratitude, in the beauty of this program, we as people are very lucky. I've said this over and over again, that people connected to addiction, people in dysfunctionality, are very lucky people. Because realize something, please. The world in which we live is dysfunctional. And since it is dysfunctional, it is our teacher. Learn to realize that dysfunctionality is not negative, but that dysfunctionality is a way for the higher power to touch us, to teach us, and to help us to grow. Remember the old saying, no pain, no gain. As you experience the struggles in life, you experience the beauty in life. I hope that this has helped you to understand the process of recovery and to realize the importance of opening up and giving yourself permission to look for the better you and to experience the beauty of your personhood. Thank you.